Why did you take my book, Emily? I asked, my voice tight with frustration as I confronted my sister in the living room. Emily's eyes darted away, her cheeks flushed. I didn't take it. I don't even know what you're talking about, she mumbled, trying to look innocent. I didn't believe her for a second. My favorite book, the one I'd spent months saving up for, was now missing from my room. It wasn't just any book, it was a collector's edition of my favorite fantasy series, and I had been saving up for it for a year. Finding it missing was like losing a part of myself. I knew Emily had been sneaking around my room lately, and now it seemed like she had crossed a line. I wasn't about to let this slide, not without confronting her. I saw you with it the other day. It was on my bed, and now it's gone. What else am I supposed to think? Maybe you misplaced it, she retorted, her voice rising defensively. Misplaced it? I keep my room meticulously organized. I know exactly where everything is, I said, trying to keep my anger in check. And besides, why would I accuse you if I didn't have a reason? Mom chose that moment to walk in, her expression shifting from neutral to concerned as she took in the scene. What's going on here? Emily took my book, I said, pointing at my sister, and she's denying it. I want it back. Mom's gaze moved between us, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. She was always quick to defend Emily, but this was different. Is this true, Emily? Emily's face turned red, and she shifted uncomfortably. I didn't take it, Mom. I swear. Mom sighed deeply and turned back to me. How can you be so sure it was Emily? Because I saw her with it, I insisted. She was in my room just the other day, and the book was on my bed. Mom's face grew more serious. If Emily says she didn't take it, then we need to consider that she might be telling the truth. We need to think about how we're going to handle this situation. I was incredulous. So you're just going to take her word over mine? That's not fair. Mom's eyes narrowed, a touch of frustration seeping into her tone. It's not about fairness, it's about making sure we address this properly. You need to understand that accusations without proof can lead to bigger issues. What proof do you need? I asked, feeling the sting of injustice. I'm the one who's missing something. Shouldn't that be enough? Mom shook her head. Accusations can be damaging, and we don't want to escalate this without knowing all the facts. I need to think about what's best for both of you. I was about to argue further when Emily chimed in. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with your things, this wouldn't be a problem. I'm always the one getting blamed for everything. I felt my anger flare up. That's not fair. I'm not obsessed with my things. I just want to be treated with respect. Mom took a deep breath and placed a calming hand on Emily's shoulder. We need to find a solution. I think we should sit down and talk about this calmly. I watched as Mom guided Emily to the couch and then turned her attention back to me. Why don't you sit down too? We need to figure out how to resolve this. I reluctantly sat next to Emily, my heart pounding in my chest. Fine. What do you suggest? Mom took a deep breath. We're going to have a family meeting. We'll discuss the situation, and I want both of you to be honest and open about your feelings. I couldn't believe what was happening. It felt like Mom was taking Emily's side without considering my perspective. What if we don't find a solution? What if Emily's taken my book and is just lying about it? Mom's eyes softened, but her resolve remained firm. We'll deal with that if it happens, but right now, I need you to be patient. We have to approach this with understanding. As we sat there, tension thick in the air, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply unfair. Emily's previous behavior had been questionable, and now it seemed like I was being set up as the villain for wanting what was rightfully mine. I want my book back, I said finally, my voice trembling with frustration. And I want this situation resolved. Mom nodded. We'll work on it, but I need you to trust me on this. The family meeting was set for the next day, and as I went to my room, I couldn't shake the feeling that my world was crumbling. My relationship with my sister was strained, and it seemed like Mom was more focused on keeping the peace than finding the truth. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the unfairness of it all. Emily's actions had gone unchecked, and now I felt like I was being punished for standing up for myself. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a much larger conflict that would challenge everything I thought I knew about family, fairness, and what it truly meant to stand up for myself. The next morning, I woke up with a gnawing sense of unease. I knew the family meeting was going to be uncomfortable, but I didn't expect it to feel this ominous. I trudged downstairs, where the kitchen table was set for what felt like an official council meeting. Mom was already at the table, flipping through a notebook. Emily was sitting across from her, looking unusually subdued. Good morning, Mom said, trying to sound cheerful despite the tension in the room. Let's get started, shall we? I sat down at the table, my heart racing. I wanted to get straight to the point, but I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Mom cleared her throat and looked at us both. Okay, Let's review what we know, Mom said. Sarah believes Emily took her book, and Emily insists she didn't. We need to talk through this carefully. Sarah, why don't you start? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. I noticed my book was missing about a week ago. I had left it on my bed, and when I went back to my room, it was gone. I saw Emily in my room not long before that, and I'm pretty sure she took it. She's been in my room a lot recently, which is unusual. Emily shot me an exasperated look. I don't even know where your room is half the time. And I definitely didn't take your book. I don't even read that kind of stuff. Mom turned to Emily, her expression a mix of concern and skepticism. Emily, if you didn't take the book, can you explain why Sarah would think you did? Emily fidgeted with her fingers, her gaze falling to the table. I don't know. Maybe she's just mad at me for some reason. I've never taken anything of hers before. I could feel my frustration bubbling up again. Emily, this isn't just about me being mad. It's about you taking something that doesn't belong to you. And this isn't the first time you've acted suspiciously around my stuff. Mom sighed and rubbed her temples. I understand this is a frustrating situation, but we need to find a resolution. I don't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe there's another explanation. Another explanation? I said, incredulous. The only explanation is that Emily took my book and is lying about it. Mom's eyes hardened slightly. We can't just accuse people without proof. If we did that, it would only lead to more mistrust and arguments. I felt a pang of disappointment. But what if Emily has done this before? What if she's just good at hiding it? Mom gave me a stern look. Sarah, accusing Emily of being a habitual thief is not constructive. We need to address the current situation, not dredge up past grievances. I slumped in my chair, feeling cornered. What about my book? I'm out of pocket, and I don't have any way to replace it. Mom paused, clearly wrestling with her next words. I understand your frustration, but right now, we need to focus on resolving this issue. Emily, I need you to be completely honest. Did you take Sarah's book or not? Emily shook her head vehemently. No, I didn't take it. I promise. I would never take something that doesn't belong to me. There was a moment of silence as Mom absorbed Emily's response. All right, here's what we're going to do. We'll give it a few more days to see if the book turns up. In the meantime, Sarah, I want you to avoid making any more accusations without concrete evidence. And Emily, I want you to be mindful of Sarah's things. I nodded, though I felt far from satisfied. Fine. But what if the book doesn't turn up? Mom looked troubled. If it doesn't, we'll have to consider other measures. But I want to emphasize that we're not jumping to conclusions or making assumptions. The meeting ended with a heavy air of uncertainty. I left the kitchen feeling deflated and angry. It felt like Mom was bending over backward to avoid conflict rather than seeking the truth. Later that afternoon, I sat in my room, trying to focus on my homework but finding it nearly impossible. My mind kept wandering back to the meeting and the unresolved issue of my missing book. I couldn't help but feel that Mom was protecting Emily at my expense. Just as I was about to lose hope, there was a knock at my door. Emily poked her head in, looking unusually serious. Can I come in? I nodded, wary of what she might say. Sure, what's up? Emily stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Look, I know we don't get along very well, but I wanted to apologize for everything. I didn't take your book, but I'm sorry for any trouble I might have caused. I was taken aback by her sudden change in tone. Apologizing? For what exactly? For the way things have been between us, Emily said, her voice sincere. I know we argue a lot, and maybe I've been too careless with your stuff. I didn't mean to make things worse. I softened a bit, though I was still skeptical. It's not just about arguments. It's about trust. I need to know that if something goes missing, you're not the first person I suspect. Emily nodded. I understand. I'll try to be more respectful of your things, and I hope we can start over. Before I could respond, Mom called from downstairs. Sarah, Emily, it's time for dinner. Emily gave me a small, hesitant smile before heading out of my room. I was left alone with my thoughts, wondering if this newfound willingness to mend fences was genuine or just another layer to the growing tension in our house. Dinner was a quiet affair. Mom tried to lighten the mood with casual conversation, but the underlying tension was palpable. As we ate, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were all just putting on a brave face for the sake of maintaining some semblance of normalcy. After dinner, Mom and Emily went to the living room to watch TV, while I retreated to my room, feeling more isolated than ever. I knew that resolving this conflict wasn't going to be easy, and I had no idea what the next few days would bring. All I wanted was for things to go back to the way they were before, but it seemed like that was a distant dream. The next few days passed in a blur of uncertainty and simmering tension. I kept hoping that the missing book would miraculously reappear, but each day that passed without any sign of it only seemed to increase the strain between Emily and me. I continued to feel a knot of anger and frustration, especially as I noticed how Mom seemed to be more lenient toward Emily, further fueling my sense of injustice. On the fourth day after the meeting, I was at my desk working on a history paper when Mom knocked and entered my room. She looked more serious than usual. "Sarah, we need to talk," she said, her tone making me sit up straighter. "What's up?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Mom walked in and closed the door behind her. "I've been thinking a lot about the situation with the book, and I'm concerned about how things are between you and Emily." "Concerned?" I said, my voice tinged with disbelief. "She's the one who's causing problems. I'm the one who's been wronged here." Mom sighed and sat down on the edge of my bed. "I know you feel that way, but I'm trying to understand both sides. Emily is my daughter too, and I want to make sure we're handling this fairly." I felt a surge of frustration. "But how is it fair if you're not even trying to find the truth? Emily's behavior has been shady, and I feel like I'm being punished for speaking up." Mom's face softened with sympathy, but she still looked firm. "I'm not punishing you, Sarah. I'm trying to prevent the situation from escalating further. That's why I think it's important we look at all the options." "What options?" I asked, feeling a mix of dread and curiosity. "Are we talking about something other than just waiting and hoping my book turns up?" Mom nodded. "Yes. I've been considering whether sending you to military school might be a viable option. It would provide structure and discipline, which might help you deal with your frustrations in a more constructive way." I felt my heart drop at her words. "Military school? You can't be serious. That's a huge leap from just dealing with a missing book." Mom's expression was resolute. "It's not just about the book. It's about the overall issues we're facing. I think a change of environment might help you gain perspective and learn to handle conflicts in a more mature way." I stared at her in shock, unable to believe what I was hearing. "So you're saying that instead of dealing with the problem at hand, you want to send me away?" Mom's eyes were earnest, but her decision seemed final. "I think it might be beneficial for you to experience a different environment where you can develop discipline and responsibility. It's not a punishment, it's an opportunity for growth." I felt a mix of anger and helplessness. "And what about Emily? What happens to her if I'm sent away? Does she just get a free pass?" Mom looked conflicted. "Emily will have to face the consequences of her actions too. But right now, the focus is on you and how you're handling things." I could barely process what she was saying. "This isn't fair, Mom. I'm the one who's been wronged. Why should I be the one to leave?" Mom stood up, her tone softening slightly. "I'm not saying this is the only solution. I just want to explore all possibilities to help you and our family move forward." Before I could respond, she left the room, leaving me alone with my swirling thoughts. The idea of being sent to military school was overwhelming. I had heard about the strict rules and intense discipline, and the thought of being uprooted from my life was terrifying. As I tried to calm down, Emily knocked and came in. She looked anxious, her earlier calm demeanor replaced by worry. "Hey, are you okay?" I gave her a tired look. "Not really. Mom just suggested sending me to military school." Emily's eyes widened in surprise. "Seriously? That's intense." "Yeah, and it feels like a huge overreaction," I said, feeling my frustration bubble up again. "I don't know what to do. It feels like no one is listening to me." Emily sat down on my bed, her expression thoughtful. "Look, I know we don't get along, but maybe you should talk to Mom more about how this is affecting you. She might not realize how serious this is." I was taken aback by Emily's advice. "Why are you being helpful all of a sudden?" Emily shrugged. "Maybe because I don't want to be the reason for you being sent away. I didn't realize things had gotten this bad." I could see a glimmer of sincerity in her eyes. "Thanks, I guess. I'll try to talk to Mom again." The next day, I approached Mom with a renewed sense of determination. I needed to make her understand how serious the situation was and how sending me away wasn't the answer. "Mom, can we talk?" I said, finding her in the kitchen. Mom looked up from her coffee, her expression neutral. "Of course, Sarah. What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," I began, choosing my words carefully. "Sending me to military school feels like a drastic step. I understand that you want to address my behavior, but it's not just about discipline. It's about feeling like I'm being unfairly punished for something I didn't do." Mom listened intently, her gaze softening as I spoke. "I understand that you're upset. I'm trying to find a solution that helps you grow and resolves the issues we're facing. I get that, but there are other ways to address this without sending me away," I continued. "We need to find a way to resolve the missing book issue and work on our family dynamics. I want to be heard and to have a chance to fix things here." Mom took a deep breath, clearly weighing my words. "You're right. We need to address the core issues rather than jumping to extreme solutions. I'll reconsider the idea of military school and focus on finding a better way to help you and our family. I felt a glimmer of hope as Mom's expression softened. Thank you, Mom. I just want to make things right and have a fair chance to fix things. Mom nodded, her face showing a mix of relief and contemplation. We'll work on it together. Let's start by having another family meeting and discussing our options more thoroughly. As I left the kitchen, I felt a small sense of victory. Maybe there was a chance for resolution after all, and perhaps the family could find a way to move forward without resorting to extreme measures. The next family meeting was scheduled for the following evening. As the day wore on, I found it hard to focus on anything other than the impending discussion. I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach, unsure of how things would turn out. Despite the earlier discussions, I still wasn't sure what to expect. Would Mom reconsider sending me away, or would we find a way to work through our issues? That evening, as we gathered around the kitchen table again, the atmosphere was charged with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Mom had asked us all to be honest and open, emphasizing that it was crucial for resolving our family's current predicament. All right, everyone, Mom began, her voice steady but with a note of caution. We're here to revisit the issues we've been facing and discuss potential solutions. I want us to approach this with an open mind and a focus on finding a resolution. I looked across the table at Emily, who was sitting with her usual mix of defiance and anxiety. She seemed nervous but determined. I took a deep breath and spoke up. Mom, I appreciate you reconsidering the idea of military school, I said. But I think we need to address the immediate issue first, the missing book and the lack of trust between Emily and me. Mom nodded. Yes, let's start there. Emily, do you have anything to say about the book? Emily fidgeted with her fingers. I know this has been really hard for Sarah, and I'm sorry for any trouble I've caused. I didn't take the book, but I understand why Sarah would think that. I really wish we could find a way to resolve this. I could see Emily's sincerity, but it didn't completely alleviate my frustration. I appreciate your apology, Emily, but the fact remains that my book is still missing. I need to know that we can find a solution without just jumping to extremes. Mom looked thoughtful. I agree. We need to focus on practical solutions. I've been thinking about involving a mediator, someone who can help us navigate these conflicts and work on rebuilding trust. A mediator? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. How would that help? Mom explained, a mediator is someone trained to help people resolve conflicts and improve communication. They can provide a neutral perspective and help us work through our issues constructively. I was skeptical but willing to consider it. All right, I'm open to that. But what if the book never turns up? How do we handle that? Mom gave a small nod. If the book doesn't show up, we'll have to consider other steps, but the mediator can help us with that as well. The goal is to improve our family dynamics and ensure that such conflicts are handled more effectively in the future. Emily spoke up, her voice earnest. I think that's a good idea. It's clear that things have been tense between us, and maybe having someone help us talk through it could make a difference. With the mediator idea on the table, the meeting continued with a sense of cautious optimism. We discussed potential candidates for the role and how they could help us address not just the current issue but also any underlying problems. As we wrapped up the meeting, Mom expressed a renewed sense of commitment to resolving our conflicts. I'll start reaching out to mediators and see who might be a good fit for us. In the meantime, I want both of you to try and work on rebuilding trust with each other. I'll try, I said, feeling a small sense of relief. I just want things to get better. Mom smiled faintly. That's a good start. We'll take this one step at a time. The following week, we began working with a mediator named Mrs. Collins, a calm and experienced professional with a knack for facilitating communication. Our first session with her was both eye-opening and challenging. Mrs. Collins started by asking us to share our perspectives on the conflict. Sarah, Emily, I want each of you to express how you're feeling about the situation and what you hope to achieve through these sessions. I took a deep breath and began. I feel like my trust has been broken, and it's hard to know how to move forward when I feel like I'm not being taken seriously. I want to resolve the issue of the missing book, but I also want to rebuild trust with Emily. Emily nodded, her expression thoughtful. I understand why Sarah feels that way, and I'm sorry for any part I played in that. I want to be honest and improve our relationship. I don't want to be at odds with her all the time. Mrs. Collins listened attentively, nodding as we spoke. It's clear that both of you want to improve your relationship and address the trust issues. Our goal will be to help you communicate more effectively and find practical solutions to your conflicts. Over the next few sessions, Mrs. Collins guided us through various exercises aimed at improving our communication and understanding each other's perspectives. We worked on expressing our feelings without blame and finding common ground. One exercise involved each of us writing a letter to the other person, expressing our feelings and hopes for the future. It was a challenging but enlightening experience. Reading Emily's letter, I saw a side of her I hadn't fully acknowledged before, her own frustrations and fears, and her genuine desire to improve our relationship. By the time we had our final session with Mrs. Collins, the tension between Emily and me had lessened. We still had work to do, but we were making progress. The mediator's involvement had helped us address the immediate issues and provided tools for better communication in the future. As we wrapped up, Mrs. Collins offered some final advice. Remember, resolving conflicts takes time and effort from both sides. It's important to continue practicing what you've learned and to support each other in building a stronger relationship. Mom was pleased with the progress and expressed her gratitude. I'm proud of how both of you have handled this. It's not easy, but you've made great strides in improving your relationship. With the mediator's help, we managed to navigate the immediate conflict, and while my missing book never did turn up, the experience taught us valuable lessons about communication and trust. The family dynamic was still a work in progress, but we were on a better path. As for the military school threat, it was put aside, and Mom's focus shifted to supporting us in resolving our issues at home. I felt a sense of relief and hope as we moved forward, knowing that while challenges remained, we were equipped to handle them together.